Once upon a time, a long time ago, there were a king and a queen who worked so hard to do the best they could to provide for all of the people in their kingdom. And they loved doing it. They loved their people. And the people in the kingdom loved them because the people knew that the king and queen loved the people. But there was one thing that made the king and queen very sad. They didn't have any children. One day the king and queen were having breakfast in the royal breakfast room. The king was reading his royal newspaper. The queen was sipping her coffee like this. "Oh," said the queen. The king put down his paper. He said, "What's the matter?" The queen said, "I think I'm going to have a baby." And the king said, "Oh, goody." And she did. She had a baby, not right then, but a few months later. And all the peasants heard and all the people heard. And they said, "Have you heard? The king and queen had a baby. It's so wonderful. They're so happy. Let's go see the baby." And they walked up the hill to the castle to see the baby. And when they did, her name was Thorn Rosa. When they did, they all said the same thing. They said, "Thorn Rosa is a pretty child." Try that. Thorn Rosa is a pretty child. Pretty child, pretty child, Thorn Rosa is a pretty child, pretty child. And she grew up to be a wonderful little child. When she was 3 years old, 4 years old, she'd run through the castle, she'd knock things over, she'd tear pages out of books and eat them. She made all kinds of trouble in the kitchen, and everybody loved her. And then, when she was 5 years old, the king said, "I need to take you to live someplace where you'll be very safe. It's going to be way up high in that castle." So he took her hand, and she took his hand, and they walked up to the bottom of the castle where there was the door. And the king said, "I'm going to open up this door for you, Thorn Rosa." And he put his hand on the door, and he pulled, and he couldn't open it up. So he said, "Thorn Rosa, would you please help me open up the door?" "Here we go." And she helped him. And they opened up the door, and with their legs they walked up the steps, step, 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 and they got to the top door, and the king said to Thorn Rosa, "I'm going to open this door for you, Thorn Rosa." And he put his hand on the doorknob, and he pulled, "I can't open this. Would you please help me open this door, Thorn Rosa?" And so she helped him. And they opened up the door, and they walked into this most wonderful room. There were books in the bookcase. There was a fire burning in the fireplace. There were birds flying past the window. And that's where she lived. She lived up in a castle high. She lived up in a castle high. Castle high, castle high. She lived up in a castle high. Castle high. She lived up in that castle high until she was no longer a little girl. She was a beautiful young woman. She was 18 years old. And on her 18th birthday, one day there came an ugly witch. Now, to sing this part, you got to make a really ugly face. Let's see your ugly face. And you make a really ugly voice. One day there came an ugly witch. Here we go. One day there came an ugly witch. Ugly witch. Ugly witch. One day there came an ugly witch. Ugly witch. She walked up to the door, and she put out her ugly witch hand, and she opened up the door. And she walked up the steps with her ugly witch legs. Step, 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 step. And then she made an ugly witch fist, and she knocked on the top door. Knock, knock, knock. Thorn Rosa said, "Come on in." "Okay, I will." So she put out her ugly witch hand, and she opened up the door. And she walked in, and the witch put out her ugly witch finger, and she touched Thorn Rosa on the shoulder like this. Touch. And then the witch turned and walked back down the stairs, laughing the way witches do. Well, Thorn Rosa didn't know who this was or what had just happened. All she knew was that all of a sudden she felt very sleepy, and she yawned like this. She said, "I think I'm so tired, I better lie down on my bed and take a little nap." So Thorn Rosa got into her bed, and she pulled the blankets right up to her chin, and she fell asleep. And Thorn Rosa slept 100 years. Thorn Rosa slept 100 years. 100 years, 100 years, Thorn Rosa slept 100 years, 100 years. And the king fell asleep, and the queen fell asleep, and the servants fell asleep, and the dog fell asleep, and the cat fell asleep, and the castle fell asleep. And while they were sleeping, outside, all around a castle, a thorny hedge with really sharp thorns, a thorny hedge grew giant high. A thorny hedge grew giant high, giant high, giant high. A thorny hedge grew giant high, giant high, so high and so thick nobody could ever get through it. People will be riding in their horses to go see the king and the queen on important business, and they go, "Whoa, what is this thorny hedge doing here? I have to see the king. I have to see the queen." And they try to reach through, but the thorns were so sharp, what would they say? "Ouch! Ouch, that hurts. My hand is bleeding. I'm not going to go through there." And nobody did. Nobody went through the thorny hedge for years and years and years, until 100 years later, one day there came a handsome prince. One day there came a handsome prince, handsome prince, handsome prince. One day there came a handsome prince, handsome prince. He was riding along on his horse and he went, "Whoa, whoa, what is this thorny hedge doing here?" And he tried to reach through like so many people had done before him, but he did not say ouch. When he touched the thorny hedge, he went, "Whoa." Because, let's make the thorny hedge now, because when he touched the thorny hedge, it went like this, right down to the ground. And he broke right through the thorny hedge. He broke right through the thorny hedge, thorny hedge, thorny hedge. He broke right through the thorny hedge, thorny hedge. And when the thorny hedge touched the ground, once again the handsome prince said, "Whoa." Because what did he see? He saw the castle. He said, "Oh, I have to go into that castle." He walked up to the bottom door. He put out his handsome prince arm and he opened it up. Whoa! And he walked up the steps with his handsome prince legs. Step, 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 step. And then he made a handsome prince fist and he knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Did anybody answer? No. Maybe I better knock a little louder. Knock, knock, knock. And still nobody answered. He said, "I don't know what to do. I really want to know who's in there. And wait a minute, there's been so much magic today. The thorny hedge going down to the ground." And he just decided to go ahead and go right in. So he put his handsome prince arm out and opened up the door. Yeah! And he stepped inside the room, and once again the handsome prince said, "Whoa." He saw a fire burning in the fireplace, wonderful books in the bookcase. There were birds flying past the window, and a beautiful young woman asleep in the bed. The handsome prince said, "I must be having a dream. I must be having a dream. How can I tell whether this is a dream or not? I know. I'll put out my finger, and I'll touch that woman on the shoulder. And if my finger goes right through, I'll know she's a ghost and this is not happening. But if I can feel her shoulder, I'll know this is really happening." So the handsome prince put out his handsome prince finger and he touched Thorn Rosa on the shoulder like this. Touch. And when he did, Thorn Rosa went, "Whoa!" And she woke up. Thorn Rosa wakened at his touch, at his touch, at his touch. Thorn Rosa wakened at his touch, at his touch. And the king woke up, "Whoa!" And the queen woke up, "Hey!" And the servants woke up, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!" And the dog woke up, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!" And the cat woke up, "Meow!" And the castle woke up, "Whoa!" And they were all so happy to be awake and to meet this new, interesting guy. And Thorn Rosa was awake, that they had a big party, and they all lived for 100 years. They all lived for 100 years, 100 years, 100 years. They all lived for 100 years, years. They all live for 100 years. 100 years, 100 years. They all live for 100 years. 100 years.